And we are live. What is up, people? Let me know in the YouTube live chat right now if you can hear me. Let me know if everything sounds all right. If I need to crank up my microphone even a little bit more. This is not the most sophisticated streaming setup of all time in volleyball source history, but I'm making it work. All right, my name's Rob St. Clair. I am here in Long Beach, California. I am on the 8th floor of this Marriott hotel where all the teams are staying and where in a couple hours the AVCA year-end banquet is going down in the lobby downstairs. I think that's at 6 p.m. Pacific. I will be there to see all of the All-Americans honored and see the announcement of the National Player of the Year. Spoiler alert, it will be Ilir Heno from UC Irvine. So before that, as we got a little day off in between the action here at the 2024 NCAA Tournament, I wanted to jump on and do a little recap of the 4 games from yesterday and preview the 2 semifinals tomorrow, because I've been saying on the broadcast, and I believe it, that tomorrow's semifinals could very well be the best ever in the history of this event, and I legitimately believe that any of the 4 remaining teams can win this national championship, and that is not common that you get to a Final Four in this event, and that's actually the case. Usually there's one or at least 2 teams that are just much better than everyone else. Like last year was a pretty good example. UCLA and Hawaii last year were just better than everybody else, and that showed with their semifinal performances, even though Hawaii versus Penn State last year was a good match. This year, it's a total coin flip. For both of these semifinals, I actually believe it's a coin flip, and for whoever gets to the final and whoever plays there, that's a coin flip too. So I love that. That's awesome. And before I dive into this thing, this is a disclaimer. I've been on the broadcasts for all 4 quarterfinals yesterday. I'm going to be on the call again as the analyst for both semifinals tomorrow. But right now, I am Volleyball Source Rob. I am not NCAA.com Rob. I'm going to be more opinionated here, and my whatever takes I spit on this channel don't necessarily represent what I might be saying or might be limiting myself to saying on NCAA.com. But this is going to get a little more juicy than stuff I would say on the broadcast. So prepare yourselves. All right, I'll start off by going through I've got the printouts for the final stat reports from yesterday's quarterfinals. I'm going to go through them. Just going to pull out any conclusions that I can to talk about these 4 games. Obviously, there were all 3 dongs, which was a bit disappointing. It was very expected for the first game and the third game, but I was hoping for a little bit more out of the 4 versus 5 game, out of the 3 versus 6 game. We'll talk about those in a second. We'll start off though. We'll go chronologically through yesterday's matches. Fort Valley State, the number 8 seed, the winners of the SEAC conference, representing their league for the first time ever on the NCAA tournament stage. Had to try and take on UCLA, and that was just a matchup that they were just straight up never going to win. And there is more to talk about this game than simply what happened in the match, because the match was not competitive. It was 25-14, 25-15, 25-15. Fort Valley State actually led, I think, 10-8 in the second, and then UCLA went on a really convincing and rather demoralizing run if you're a fan of Fort Valley State, and it was over. It was never in doubt. Fort Valley State hit 0 efficiency as a team. UCLA hit 521, which is absurd. There's not that much that we can pull out here on the UCLA side. They executed it at an insanely high level. Of course they did. This is an opponent that just doesn't have the talent to hang with a team as good as UCLA. The one thing that we can talk about is who UCLA started, and that was Guy Gennis in the middle and Ido David at opposite. And also, it was Matthew Aziz as the defensive libero. The UCLA's libero position has been a big topic of conversation all year. It's been a revolving door. They've used, I think, at least 5 different guys. They've settled lately on Alex Knight, last year's tournament most outstanding player as an outside hitter. Alex Knight is the reception libero now. He's in when UCLA is receiving. It was, through the MPSF tournament, it was Coleman McDonough as the defensive libero who's in when UCLA is serving. But at least yesterday, it was Matthew Aziz. So that's one that I have my eye on. I'm not sure who's going to be that guy tomorrow against UC Irvine. But what John Speraw told me yesterday is that Guy Gennis and Ido David will start tomorrow. They will be the guys at their respective positions tomorrow. Obviously, we saw Sean McQuiggan yesterday in the middle. We saw Grant Sloan a little bit in a 6-2 yesterday on the right side. We saw Zach Rama on the left side off the bench. But as for the starting lineup tomorrow for UCLA, what we know is that it will be Rowan, obviously, David at opposite, Champlin and Robinson, predictably, at outsides, Guinness and McHenry in the middles, Knight as the reception libero, and I guess sort of TBD as the defensive libero. But we know that Guinness and David will start tomorrow at those two positions. They were both great yesterday. They both looked real comfortable. That was never in doubt. They were playing an opponent that should not have been able to stop them on paper and could not stop them on the court. So we'll talk about UCLA, their prognosis against Irvine in a minute. But I wanted to talk about Fort Valley State, and it's just so much more important than how they performed on the court. I've been watching a lot of hockey as the Stanley Cup playoffs have gone on, and one take that I heard somewhere was that in order to get a team ready to be championship caliber, you have to go through a year or two where you make the playoffs and get stomped in the first round, just to understand what it's like to be there and just how different it feels to be playing that level of competition in that atmosphere. So Fort Valley State now has done that. This program has existed for only 3 years. This is only their third season of existence as a team and as a league. The CHAC has only sponsored men's volleyball for now 3 seasons. They got that auto bid this year. And honestly, I kind of expected them to get crushed yesterday by UCLA, but the way that they got crushed, I actually was not how I was expecting. I was expecting them to get served off the floor. I thought that they were going to have no chance in first contact and that they just would have been hitting too many out-of-system balls against a very good UCLA team that was going to run it back down their throats in transition. But that's actually not what happened. Fort Valley State hung in there pretty well on first contact. Their defensive energy was impressive. They were decently in system. I don't have their passing numbers because the NCAA stats are an absolute joke, which is a rant I'll go on a little bit later. But Fort Valley State hung in there okay in first contact. It was just third contact where they didn't have it. Their execution on third contact was not good enough. They didn't make good enough choices. They hit way too many balls out of bounds unforced. You're going to get blocked a few times. Like, that's no big deal. Like, UCLA had, I think, just like 5.5 blocks as a team. I hate the half block thing. I'll talk about that later. But the errors for Fort Valley State, 17 total. Just far too many. Just missed execution things and balls I feel like they would normally put away if they weren't a little bit afraid of the opponent that was across the net from them. But Fort Valley State representing the SEAC conference, representing historically black colleges and universities more largely, and representing kids from a bunch of backgrounds that don't traditionally get a chance to play NCAA volleyball is so important. It's really important. And their coach, Larry Rather, who I've known for years, I have a ton of respect for, he said that the representation that these kids are getting really, really matters, and that guys from minority backgrounds, from underprivileged socioeconomic backgrounds, from places geographically in the country that don't typically output great men's volleyball talent, giving players like that a chance to compete at this level is really important. And not just at the NCAA level, like giving them a conference to play in, but giving that conference a bid to the NCAA tournament. This was a goal that Fort Valley State was striving for all season long. As soon as it was announced that the SEAC was going to get a bid, they did everything they could. They went undefeated through conference, and I thought that they represented their league and HBCU volleyball really, really well on the biggest stage. They had a great cheering section, and just the significance of what they achieved this season and that representation was not lost on them and was not lost on their fan base and their university. The president of their university was here and was in the gym yesterday, which is insane. I'm not sure if any other university president is going to be in the building, except maybe Long Beach, just because it's convenient for this tournament. But just huge shout out to Fort Valley State. They were a team that was fun to watch. They really have a lot to build on, because if you get crushed in first contact, that's going to be really difficult to build on, especially because you don't see servers like that very often throughout the year. But they hung in there well in first contact, and the things that they can improve on are actually controllable in their gym. And a program like that is likely going to win the SEAC again next year and will probably be back. And I'm excited to see what they can do when they do get back to this level. So I'll get back to UCLA as we preview the quarterfinal, or the semifinal, sorry. I'll get on to the next match that happened yesterday, and that was Penn State versus UC Irvine. And this was disappointing to me because I wanted more out of Penn State. I wanted more out of Penn State because if you told Penn State and Coach Mark Pavlik that Ilir Heno, who will win the National Player of the Year in a couple hours just downstairs from where I am, Ilir Heno hit 189 yesterday. 15 kills on 37 attempts with 8 errors. some unforced, got blocked a few times. I honestly thought Penn State did the best job that they possibly could have to slow down and defend against Ilir Heno. Penn State slowed him down to only hit 189. Irvine hit 284 as a team. But Penn State was never even really that close to capitalizing on that other than an overtime loss in set 1. Like they put up 16 and 19 in sets 2 and 3, and the setting was just so bad. The setting for Penn State was just so bad. There was nothing that they could do. A true freshman, Michael Schwob, who's going to get a lot better. He's a good volleyball player, comes from a great volleyball family, but locating the ball was just not good enough for him through 2 sets. Then Pav pulled the trigger on a setter switch. Luke Snyder came in, the senior, who has been in the program for a long time, but he got a look earlier in the year when Schwob won the battle for the starting setter in the fall. Started the first half of non-con, then Snyder took the job from him, then Snyder gave the job back to Schwob. If you're a senior and you can't lock down that job from a true freshman who can't locate the ball, then the instability with set location is going to continue even when you come on the floor. It was tough to watch. It was tough to watch Penn State try to operate on offense with the inconsistency in set location they were dealing with. Underset balls was a big theme to the middle. Toby Izionu tried his hardest to get going, but couldn't. He got 17 attempts, but only went 8 for 17 with 3 errors. Just could not set the ball into the window for the kid. They couldn't set the ball high enough to the BIC. They couldn't set the ball high enough or out to the pin enough to John Kerr on the right side, who had a decent game at 276, but it wasn't enough. The setting was a big problem for Penn State, and Pav told me after the press conference, like sort of off the record, that like we talked to him in our interview last week, he said that was exactly the way that he projected if they were going to lose that game. That was how they could not terminate balls in transition. The last thing they afford to do is when they dig balls, fail to kill them. You do not want to give Ilir Heno and UC Irvine more chances to run balls back down your throat, and Penn State was just not good enough on offense. 188 in an NCAA tournament game is never going to be good enough against a super good opponent, and I thought they did an awesome job defending Ilir Heno, but they didn't do a good enough job when the ball was on their side of the net, and that was just the end of it. Irvine, though, I was super impressed by both middles. Maxime Grigoriev and Connor Campbell, were both awesome. By the way, people were chirping me about the pronunciation of Grigoriev. I was very certain it should have been pronounced Grigoriev, 4 syllables, but it was written in Irvine's team published pronunciation guide that it was Grigorev. So I'll double check on that tomorrow, but that's why we were pronouncing it that way. Both Irvine middles were awesome. I was really impressed. They were moving side to side, touching balls on offense brilliantly. They got involved on offense really well. Campbell hit 286, Grigoriev 556, a lot better. Irvine's block defense was amazing, and that was due to Penn State's inability to locate the ball at the center position, but I was super impressed by how Irvine touched balls and then got them into transition and terminated with pretty high effect. Akil Tangatura was really good as well. I wasn't sure if he was going to get the started outside. He did. He was awesome. Hit 385. Let's see. Had one of Irvine's only 3 aces, received pretty darn well, defended position 6 pretty darn well, and I expect him to be the guy against UC Irvine until maybe they need more firepower. If they end up needing to put in Nolan Flexen for firepower, I could see that, but Tangatura I expect to be the guy. So Irvine kind of survived without a great performance from their best player. And they won 3-0, and sets 2 and 3 were convincing, and that should scare people about UC Irvine playing in not a super good game and winning 3-0 anyway. Because tomorrow against UCLA, Heno is going to be better, and the rest of the team now has a match under their belts in that gym, in that environment, and that game is going to be really good. We'll talk about it in a minute. Penn State, to wrap up their season, they were the best team in the EIVA. I'm sure that they will be looking back on what they could have done better in against the Irvine matchup, but just with how much they lost after last season, a fifth-year setter, a fifth-year outside, a fifth-year opposite, it was going to be hard to make a run at a national championship this year. I think last year was an opportunity they really could have brought home some hardware. This year, that just was probably not going to happen with the depth that there is on the West Coast that they were going to run into at some point. So credit to Penn State. Mark Pavlik is the man. He might be my favorite coach in the country to talk to. And this was year 30 for him. And from everything I was hearing from the program, he's not done yet. That is I know there's been rumors floating around about is Pav going to retire. What I was hearing from within the program, I didn't ask him directly, but what I was hearing from within the program is that he's not done yet. We'll see. All right, moving on. Belmont Abbey versus Long Beach State. Belmont Abbey is a fun team. They're from the Conference Carolinas. They're from a tiny little town in Belmont, North Carolina. They enroll less than 2,000 kids at their school, which is insane. They won the Conference Carolinas, which is a volatile league. They had no chance against Long Beach State. No chance. No chance at all. And it was kind of a bummer to watch because they were, as their head coach Derek Sullivan advertised to us, they had the most fun bench of any team I've seen all year. Maybe in all of volleyball anywhere ever. That team's bench was so much fun. They were having such an awesome time with these crazy, like, organized, intricate celebrations after every time they scored a point. They were chirping they were chirping Long Beach State's guys. It was awesome. That energy was so great. And the team was kind of feeding off of it through the first decent part of the first set. Like, that was a pretty competitive first set until Belmont Abbey made two horrific unforced hitting errors in a row that deflated the team on the court, that kind of deflated the bench, and it was absolutely over after that. The Belmont Abbey's best player, Matt Staskunas, hit 0. 3 for 20 with 3 errors was definitely his worst game of the season. Their second outside hitter position couldn't score. And they just really had no chance. Long Beach is too good. Long Beach is far too good for Belmont Abbey. Long Beach is too balanced. They touch too many balls on the block. They dig too many balls. And their organization and attention to detail in block touch to defense to transition offense is exemplary. That team is so well coached. They are so well organized. They know exactly what to do when a ball is touched, when they get into transition, who's going to set, who can step in and set, who can take smart high ball swings. That team has more all-around volleyball skill distributed at every position than maybe any team I've ever seen in the NCAA. They are so well-rounded and so well-balanced in terms of their production, player to player, but just of the way that they all are great all-around volleyball players. And playing at home, there was just no way Belmont Abbey had a chance against that. Long Beach kind of downloaded that team midway through the first set and never looked back. So Belmont Abbey, good season. They won their league. They got to the NCAA tournament. But in that matchup, there was no way they were going to replicate what North Greenville did 2 years ago in actually winning an NCAA tournament game for the Conference Carolinas. Now, they got an easier matchup against Princeton that year. They had no chance against Long Beach State. So I hope they had a great experience. I hope that they can take that back to North Carolina and build upon it for next year and create a team that's a little more ready to compete at this level, but it wasn't happening this year. Long Beach was far too good. And our last semifinal, or quarterfinal, I'm going to keep mixing those up, was the one that I was the most looking forward to and the one that I was honestly a little bit the most disappointed by, and that was Ohio State versus Grand Canyon. The main takeaway here is that Grand Canyon is really good. Grand Canyon is really, really good. They are so good. I was not totally convinced watching them from afar all year that they, being built the way that they are, that they could win a national championship. I wasn't totally convinced, but the way that they played yesterday, I am convinced. I am convinced. This Grand Canyon team can win a national championship. This is by far the best team they have ever assembled. By far. They have everything it takes to win a national championship, and they have just the mentality and this underdog ability to fight and scrap and play with a massive chip on their shoulder that they actually can win a national championship. But I thought that they were going to have a harder time with Ohio State than they did. I really did. Set one was very close. Ohio State made a late push to make it interesting. Grand Canyon got away with it on an out-of-system swing to win 25-23. But then late in kind of midway late through like 0.18-ish, in sets 2 and 3, Ohio State strung together some brutal hitting errors. Just some really unfortunate unforced hitting errors. The key to the match, according to both coaches, was Shane Wetzel, the lefty at opposite for Ohio State. And if I look at his, if you were to have told me yesterday morning that Wetzel was going to go 12 for 29 with 5 errors and hit 241 efficiency and be generally a non-factor from the service line, then I would have said the Grand Canyon would have won that match. And they did. Wetzel was going to have to be a massive deal in out-of-system attacking, was really going to have to minimize unforced errors and score sideline to sideline out-of-system for Ohio State to have a chance. That didn't quite happen. And then even more importantly, their second outside hitter position just didn't produce. Kyle Tooney started, went 0 for 2 attacking with no kills, no errors, just was a complete non-factor. Then Ben Putnam got substituted in and hit negative. So that was, I think, the difference to me, because I was building these two teams, Grand Canyon and Ohio State, as being pretty similar. The difference is that GCU has 3 wings that can score. And it turned out that Ohio State really only had 2, one of which was Wetzel, who hit a few too many balls out of bounds. And then Jacob Pasture, who is their best player, went 11 for 29 with 8 errors, hitting 103 efficiency. That's not going to do it either. He had some heroics from the service line late in the third to try and make it interesting. It wasn't enough. GCU was up by too much at that point, and it was over. Yeah, it was a bummer. I was hoping for more from Ohio State. They needed a little more balance on offense, just to have more wing production. Their middles were great. Both Cole Young and Justin Howard in the middles were outstanding. That was certainly not the problem. It was a really fun middle battle. Size for Ohio State versus speed for Grand Canyon, and was kind of a theme for the two teams overall. But the wing production for Ohio State just was not good enough. And late in sets, GCU had the killer mentality and made the plays when they needed to be made. And there were, man, that second set, go back and watch it if you haven't. Like midway through the second set, there were 2 plays in a row that were kind of the best plays of the day. One was a crazy chase down scramble for GCU. They chased down 2 balls, brought them back, but couldn't win the rally. Cole Young killed it in the middle for Ohio State. And then literally, I think the play later, Ohio State had 2 crazy scrambles on their side. One was a block cover, one was a dig. And they sent the ball back over, and then Nick Slight, GCU's phenomenal setter, got this sick one-handed flick on a tight to the net ball on a back one off one foot to Rico Wardlow, who bounced it straight down. It was electrifying. That was definitely the most excited I was at any point yesterday, which that play was awesome. That play was awesome, but I was really hoping for a little bit more of that. Grand Canyon is amazing. That team is amazing. Cameron Thorne is amazing. A 6'4" middle, and I think that's generous. I think he might maybe be 6'3". He has Augustin Loser-like qualities for fans of the channel who watch a lot of international ball. Augustin Loser is, in my opinion, the second best middle blocker in the world. He is a little bit smaller. He's only about 6'6", which is small in the international game. But his speed off the ground and his speed in attacking and blocking, the way he gets there, the way he gets his hands over the net in the blocking game is ridiculous. It's second to none how fast he can get places and block balls. Cameron Thorne is a similar player to that. And I couldn't have been more impressed by a kid, a sophomore, first-team All-American, 6'3" middle blocker. I'm like, all right, if he has to be that good, I have to see this in real life. And man, was I blown away. The speed off the floor was unbelievable. And then the setting from Nick Slight was really special. The guy's so good. The guy is so good. And I love the 4 setters that we have left in this tournament. I think all of them are real special in their own ways. But Nick Slight is just awesome. And he is such the perfect embodiment of that GCU team that plays with a chip on his shoulder, has a certain level of sort of like FU energy that his coach Matt Worley describes it for his whole team, but also just like a super nice and humble and communicative dude off the court, but a guy that you never want to play against because he's just a fireball and brings that team with him. Nick Slight is awesome. Was super impressed by him. And this Ohio State team, man, they came into the tournament like legitimately believing that they could win a national championship. And that was not an unfounded belief. They had the pieces. They had a rough MIVA season because Pasture's knees were a problem, and they had to do a little bit of load management. But I think that when that team was playing at their best, they were ranked number 1 for a second this season early. When that team's playing at their best, they could have beaten Grand Canyon, but not the way they played yesterday. Not with that lack of production from the wings. So real good effort to Ohio State. That was the most competitive quarterfinal, but it wasn't ever going to be good enough with how good Grand Canyon played. So now we've got to talk about the semis. We got to talk about these semis because this is kind of the matchups that a lot of people were predicting, a lot of the matchups that people were hoping for. You get UCLA versus UC Irvine. That game is tomorrow, Thursday, May 2nd, 3:30 p.m. Pacific. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern. That is a rematch. Those two teams have played twice already this year. We'll get into those in a minute. And then the other semifinal is Long Beach State playing at home versus Grand Canyon. They have not played this year. That match is at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. That's 9:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Both those games are live on NCAA.com, streaming for free around the world. There are no excuses for you not watching these games, for you not being able to find how to watch these games. So let's get into it. UCLA versus UC Irvine is first. What I'm most curious about here is how UCLA chooses to allocate their resources in block and defense to try and slow down Ilir Heno. Because, like I was saying, Penn State yesterday did about as good of a job as they could slowing down Heno. Heno was not his best yesterday. He made a few unforced errors, but I think that Penn State gets a lot of the credit for forcing him into some of those situations. They did a good job against some of the junky garbage that he likes to do, and they straight up stuff blocked him on several balls that are rare for him this year. The thing is, though, that in the two matches that UCLA played against Heno this season, these two matches were, the first one was in Irvine on January 31st, which UCLA won in 5. The second one was 2 nights later at UCLA on February 2nd, which UCLA won in 4. Those two matches combined, we'll get Heno's numbers. This is ridiculous. Those two matches combined, Ilir Heno, 40 points, 31 for 56 attacking at .464 efficiency, 6 aces and 3 blocks in those two games. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, because Penn State bottled up Heno yesterday, but then Penn State didn't do anything else well enough. UCLA beat Irvine twice already this year, but they allowed Heno to have unbelievable matches. If it were me, what I think that John Speraw might do is he might kind of go for the strategy of, you know what, Ilir Heno is the best player in the country. He's gonna get his. That's okay. If we don't, as long as we don't allow any player not named Ilir Heno to beat us, Ilir Heno can get his and we're going to be okay. Which is a different tactic than what I think Penn State was trying to do. I think they spent a lot of time studying Ilir Heno and figuring out how to slow him down, and they did a very good job. Now, there was their own side's execution that brought him down. John Speraw and UCLA have seen Ilir Heno this year already. Now, back when they played in late January, early February, both teams were pretty different. UCLA still had completely not figured out the libero position. UC Irvine hadn't figured out their opposite position yet. They hadn't really brought in William Darcy, who is now the guy. They really were soul-searching at that position. So the teams are different then. But in terms of the Heno versus UCLA matchup, I honestly think that John Speraw might just say, all right, we're not going to allocate any more resources than usual to stopping him. He's gonna get his. That's okay. As long as nobody else beats us, we have a chance. And I agree with that. They do have a chance if nobody else but Heno can beat them. And talking about UCLA, and the key, of course, is UCLA's first ball side out. UCLA is the most efficient attacking team in the country. Their first ball side out percentages are ridiculous. They have all sorts of options. Andrew Rowan is the best setter in the country. They have arms everywhere. They have arms that can come in off the bench and produce for him. Merrick McHenry is a straight-up cheat code. I am very excited to see how UC Irvine tries to slow him down when the ball is passed well. The question has been like who the heck is going to start for UCLA? Like I was talking about earlier, it will be Ito David at opposite. It will be Guy Gannis in the middle. Why? I'm not totally sure. I think John Speraw has a lot of confidence in those two guys because of the experience from last year. But he also has a really similar level of confidence in McQuiggan off the bench in the middle and Sloan off the bench on the right side. He in particular told me that he really likes the way that Sloan blocks the ball. So maybe if Ito David blocking and Rowan to a lesser extent, if UCLA's right side blockers are getting shredded by Ilir Heno, it might not even be the offense that triggers a right side change. It could be the blocking game. If UC Irvine is way up and Heno's hitting 500 or whatever, and Speraw just doesn't feel like they can stop him, then maybe you could see an opposite switch for the blocking case. But they will start with David and Gannis in the middle. I could also definitely see McQuiggan come in the middle, but I also kind of like UCLA playing smaller because UC Irvine's middles aren't super big. Grigoriev is quite small, and Campbell is about the same size as McHenry and is a good middle, but is nothing that UCLA hasn't seen before. So, and then it'll obviously be Champlin and Robinson on the left side for sure. We'll see about the libero position. I still don't really understand what they're doing there, but one second. This UCLA team is just so good that they feel like they can keep all the emphasis on their side of the net and not play Irvine differently than any other team, really. And they still have a decent chance to win, and they do. That's the thing, is that they're not wrong about thinking that. That they'll move some things around and give their blockers certain cues based on how things are going. But I think that UCLA is going to play Irvine like basically just any other team, even with Ilir Heno on the floor. On the Irvine side, I see people talking in the chat about who they're going to start as the other two wings. It will definitely be Darcy on the right side, the Australian, and it will definitely be Tangatour on the left side. Both of them were great against Penn State yesterday. Tangatour in particular, I was super impressed by. And why I think, one matchup I think is really interesting is Tangatour as the second outside against Ethan Champlin as the second outside for UCLA. I think they kind of play similar roles. Champlin is the better player, unquestionably. He does everything. I think he might be pound for pound the best player in the country. He definitely gets more volume in attacking. But what Tangatour did really well yesterday was the little things, the little like L2 things that you need your second outside hitter to do, like play middle back defense, like play off blocker defense, like hit the ball well out of the bick, like hit the ball smartly on the left side. And I'm not butchering his name. Tangatour is how it was told to me by the coaching staff. I do my research. Stop throwing me off my train of thought, Steph, please. I'll confirm that tomorrow, but that is how I was told by the coaches. I like that outside hitter matchup. Heno is the best player on either team. But another thing that David Niffen, Irvine's coach, told me last week is that they're not even that worried about their opposite position. They're okay with William Darcy having a long leash. And if he's not super good tomorrow statistically and he's not playing with a ton of confidence, that's okay. He's going to stay on the floor. He's a big blocking presence. He's a good server. They don't need to set him that much because there were so many matches earlier this year where they didn't have an opposite really at all, and they didn't rely on attacking through the right side of the court, and they were fine. And that's because Irvine has Ilir Heno. They are the only team in the country that could survive without a sideline-to-sideline attacking presence because Heno is so good out of system and from literally anywhere on the floor, middle back included. You can throw him balls up to the tip of the Long Beach State Pyramid, and he will figure out how to make a good choice. And because he's so good at that, Darcy's leash, I think, is infinitely long. He will be the guy. He will not need to have any restrictions on how well he's attacking. Isn't Darcy kind of a hole on defense, though? Who cares? It doesn't matter. You don't need to dig that many balls in Darcy's position. UCLA is an unreal first ball side out team. It doesn't matter. They're gonna block, touch, and slow down balls from other spots. And when they do touch those balls, Heno will kill them. They're not super concerned about their back or right side defense. And if they are, they've got slightly more defensive options off the bench. I think Darcy's going to play. He's going to play every rotation. If Irvine passes the ball well enough to have the middle attack be a threat, they're very, very scary. One thing that I'm not, like, Merrick McHenry is by far the best attacker in the country. He's putting up one of the great attacking seasons statistically of all time. He's a good blocker. I'm still not convinced that he is a blocker that is going to translate quickly to the next level. I think that he's kind of the opposite of Cam Thorne from GCU. Cam Thorne is off the ground so fast. McHenry is a little more floaty. He touches so darn high that it's okay. But in the blocking game, I'm not sure he gets off the ground fast enough to match up super well with a guy like Grigoriev, because Grigoriev is up real quick, kind of like Thorne, and chisels balls fast, and in order to stop him, you're going to have to commit, especially if you're McHenry. So if UC Irvine can pass the ball well enough to get Grigoriev and Campbell involved, in addition to Heno, that will be a big deal. And then the libero matchup, Cole Power, who's a UCLA transfer. I bet John Spurall wishes he had him back right now with all the crazy uncertainty they've had at the libero position all year on the UCLA side. Cole Power is really good. He is much, much better than whatever combination of two liberos or like fake liberos UCLA puts out tomorrow. And he is going to be the guy to dig those balls that will turn into Heno points in transition. This match is going to be really good. I know they've played twice this season. UCLA won both times, in 5 on the road, in 4 at home. They are both very different teams at that point. I could easily see 5 sets here. And it's a coin flip. Honestly, I think I might have to go with UC Irvine. I think I might have to pick UC Irvine in 5, just because they have the best player. And I think there's a good question in the chat: which coach tinkers more between Speraw and Niffen? Like, which coach goes to the bench more, and when, and who has leashes, and how long are they? John Speraw classically has a tendency to do some tinkering. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. I think Niffen is more set on what he has going on. If they're getting destroyed, if Irvine is getting destroyed and needs more high ball scoring ability, they will put in Flexen. Reception be damned. But I think he's more set on what he's got going on right now than Speraw is, because Speraw has just so many great options that have played this year that he has trust in, that I think it is just naturally easier for him to start second guessing who is on the court when things start to go wrong, because he has viable options off the bench more so than UC Irvine does. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And then there's the obvious storyline too of John Speraw winning a national championship at UC Irvine in 2012, leaving UC Irvine to take the UCLA job. David Niffen coming in from being promoted from assistant to head coach and promptly winning a national championship in 2013. That's certainly a fun story that we'll be talking about in the broadcast. I've got UC Irvine in 5. I'm going to stick with it. I think this match is going to be awesome, and I'm really looking forward to how the high level chess match back and forth goes. Okay, let me take a drink and get to the next one. All right, the main event tomorrow night, home crowd for Long Beach State taking on Grand Canyon. This is a dream matchup. I'm so happy with how this shook out, that we get cross-conference matchups in the semis. I really didn't want to see like Long Beach versus Irvine again and Grand Canyon versus UCLA again in the semis, because we've already seen that. And I just want to see teams play each other that are different. I want to see teams learn each other, scout each other, play each other on the biggest stage. For the parity of the tournament, I think this is great. Long Beach is playing at home. They have an outstanding home crowd. That gym was electric last night. It was really fun. It's going to be even better on a Thursday night in the primetime slot on the West Coast. But Grand Canyon with an enemy crowd might even be more dangerous than Grand Canyon with a home crowd. Dude, I can't express enough. Grand Canyon looks for reasons to get pissed off. It's almost like Michael Jordan-like having to have somebody tell him a lie about somebody that said something bad about him to fuel him to play great in playoff situations or whatever it was. Grand Canyon is that kind of team. There were a couple stare downs through the net against Ohio State yesterday. Jackson Hickman in particular. A little bit of spice. There weren't any cards given out. I was actually surprised. I thought there might have been a little more going on. Maybe it was because GCU won 3-0, but the energy and the atmosphere about that is very fun. It's just going to be really entertaining to watch these two teams punch metaphorically back and forth across the net with each other. Long Beach State, though, like I was saying earlier, their system in block defense transition is so good that when Grand Canyon fails to terminate in first ball side out, Long Beach's breakpoint generation is going to come from transition offense. And they just make such good choices, and they're so balanced that they're very difficult to scout. They're very difficult to scout because Shapani's, whoever starts at second outside, yesterday it was Harlan, could be Godbold. They might have just been saving his knees. I'm not sure. I'll talk to Alan Knipe tomorrow. And then Varga are all so good at hitting anywhere on the floor and are so versatile and are so smart, and all their guys that are going to be setting them the ball on the second touch are so good that I just love Long Beach State's chances when they dig a ball. So for Grand Canyon, the keys are going to be to terminate points as quickly as possible. I think the shorter duration of rallies favors Grand Canyon. They're going to need to serve the lights out from the baseline. Gianni, for sure, is got to be the guy. He's the guy with the best arm. Hickman, slight to a lesser extent. Anderson, for sure, the lefty. Both middles to a lesser extent. GCU's got to put on some service pressure. GCU's got to be terminal and first ball side out. And GCU's got to got to block a couple balls. Cam Thorne, the way that he is going to have to try and download this Long Beach State offense and the way that he digests what Aiden Knipe is doing is my personal favorite matchup that's going on here. I love watching a middle blocker download an opposing setter and learn what he does and start to adjust as the match goes on, because Aiden Knipe is an outstanding athlete, an outstanding volleyball player. He's not the purest setter. His setting mechanics aren't the greatest. I think he's a rather easy setter to read. But as far as like the statistics of LBSU's balance, it's impossible to lean one way or the other in any rotation because they're so good with all 5 of their attackers. So that's Thorne's challenge. It's going to be figuring out how to download, how to read Aiden Knipe when the ball is in the air versus how to have like a preconceived notion of where they're going to go in certain rotations because Long Beach is so balanced. Grand Canyon is such a fiery team. And Nate Reynolds, Nate, I love your point in the chat. You're a Springfield guy. Former Springfield guy Jarrett Anderson is an X factor. This is a guy that played the Division III level, was a 4-time first-team All-American, which is insanely impressive. He was an X factor last night. He one-on-one shut down blocked Jacob Pasture twice in big moments to really kind of throw some daggers, at least at the direction of Ohio State, if not really plant them in Ohio State and finish those things. And I like his game too on offense. He made some unforced errors out of the back row. And he's not good on the left side. That is another big rotation advantage for Long Beach State. They've got to string points together when Grand Canyon is in rotation 1. But Anderson is a very good player for whom I have a lot of respect. Seth in the chat says, I feel like the gap between setters is going to be the deciding factor. Slight is in a whole other league from Knipe. I agree with that. Slight is the second best setter in the country by a narrow margin behind Andrew Rowan. Slight is so good, and I think that Grand Canyon's block could maybe be able to download Aiden Knipe a little bit, but Long Beach State's attackers are amazing, and they're balanced, and they go from everywhere. I think they might have hit 1,000 from the BIC yesterday. Now, this was against Belmont Abbey, to be fair, but Chapani's is incredible, especially out of the back row. Skylar Varga is really good. I love his range. I love his versatility. He gets the ball high. He doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but Grand Canyon is not a particularly big team. I think Rico Wardlow is their biggest guy at 6'7". Long Beach State has a size advantage there. Varga can go over the top of guys like Gianni Hickman and maybe even Thorne, depending on the situation. So keep an eye on that for sure. What other matchups do I need to talk about this game? Just to kind of to reinforce the energy that I'm expecting here. Long Beach State at home. The last time they played a national championship tournament at home, they won in 2019. That team was incredible with TJ DeFalco and Tuaninga, of course. But I just love the potential for energy and yelling in between the net and maybe some cards and maybe some trash talk. I'm really excited about that part of it. As far as like sports entertainment, I think this is going to be an all-time great game. And then another good point from Seth, Simon Torwey is, in my opinion, the best middle in the country. He's so good, just so good. And Alan Knipe told me last week that when you get a middle blocker who is converted from opposite, picks up the middle blocker skills as quickly as Torwey has, but still serves like an opposite, you've really got something, and they do. He's sick on offense, and he's the best blocker in the country. So he's gonna. It's a similar matchup, Thorne versus Knipe. Torwey is gonna have to try and download Nick Slight. He's gonna try to have to figure him out, and I don't think Torwey is gonna be able to read Slight while the ball is in the air the same way that Thorne might be able to with Knipe. I think that Torwey's study is going to be done before the match and is going to get tendencies from the bench about where Grand Canyon might like to go in certain rotations. Like, for example, Jarrett Anderson is not good on the left. Like, you don't need to bother trying to block him in rotation 1. You can go elsewhere. Also, like, when do they like to run Bick? When do they like to run Anderson super fast in the front row on the right side? What shots do you like to take away from Gianni? Because he has more range. I think Hickman is a little more limited in the shots that he likes to hit. So that sort of stuff Torwey can figure out in film and then have an impact. But then McCraven is the other middle, who is definitely the least experienced of the 4, and Slight might have a field day with him, which is a good point in the chat as well. And then the last question is about Clark Godbold versus Nathan Harlan starting. I have no idea. Nathan Harlan was really good yesterday. I think that Godbold sat just to give his knees a break because he missed a lot of time earlier in the year with some knee problems. I truly have no clue which one of them is going to start tomorrow. It could be either. And you could see either one of them off the bench in any part of any kind of substitution pattern. I truly don't know. I will try to talk to the coaches, or talk to Coach Knipe and Coach Nick McCray, who, by the way, was named ABCA Assistant Coach of the Year yesterday. Congrats to him. See if I can get some info from him about their outside hitter situation. But no matter who it is, Long Beach State is the same team. This game is going to be so good. It's going to have so much energy. As far as picking it, I think I have to go 5 again. And I'm going to pick Long Beach State. I think I'm going to go Long Beach State in 5. I think that this isn't the best year in the history of the Big West Conference. Like they've won so many national titles. Well, I guess they've won 4 out of the last 5. They won 4 in a row before UCLA won it last year. A very competitive conference. I think UCLA at their best might still be the best team in this field, but I like Irvine against them because they have Ilir Hena, who's the best player. And I think I like Long Beach just by the narrowest margin tomorrow against Grand Canyon. I think a couple defensive plays might be a difference. I think a couple favorable rotational matchups might be the difference, and just the home crowd. I'll go ahead and give it to both Big West teams in 5 on both sides. Those are my predictions. Those could be completely wrong. My track record of picking games is not great, as you guys know. So I'm excited about these games. Again, they're on NCAA.com tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the first match, 6:30 p.m. Pacific for the second match. And let me know. I'm about done here. It's been about 45 minutes. Good conversation. I appreciate you guys' input in the chat. If you have any more questions in the chat or any more comments about these matchups, now is the time. Otherwise, definitely want to plug the Volleyball Source Discord. I think we've got a link for that in the description. If we've got people that are new to the Volleyball Source universe, I really encourage you to join the Discord and get active in our NCAA channel in there. Tomorrow during the semis, and then Saturday, of course, the finals, which will be on ESPN2 with Paul Sunderland and Kevin Barnett. It's just a really good place to discuss volleyball. It's infinitely better than stupid Volley Talk, which is the worst place on the internet. So join the Volleyball Source Discord, and we will keep the conversation going about all these games all weekend long. Matt in the chat, thank you very much. I appreciate the love. It's been fun to call these games. It's a little different role for me doing color, not something I'm totally used to, but I really like it, just being able to dissect some of the super high level things. I honestly wish NCAA.com gave us more time in breaks to just tell some stories and talk about some things in more depth, but you guys got to understand, like, as soon as a timeout is called, my producer is in my ear saying, all right, 5 seconds until break. Like, you have 5 seconds to wrap it up before we cut the stream for a minute. So that's what we're working with, but we're doing the best we can. I hope the broadcasts are conveying pretty well to you guys at home. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for watching Volleyball Source. Thanks for watching the games. We will be back. I'll be back tomorrow on the broadcasts. I'm going to try and do a show after the semifinals. Maybe at some point on Friday. I might try and do Friday morning. We'll see. I'll try and figure out a semifinal wrap-up / final preview show in the next 2 days. But enjoy the tournament. I think it's going to be awesome down the stretch. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.